Emily, my boss, glances at me.
When should I rely on you?
Her tearful eyes are glistening and incredibly beautiful. As I hesitate, Emily rests her head on my shoulder.
A pleasant fragrance wafts from Emily's hair. From now on, I might rely on you a bit.
Her words make me feel flustered.
I slept so well. My name is Ted.
I'm a 31-year-old businessman.
It's the morning of the last day of a 3-day business trip. I just woke up in a room at a hotel. Ouch, my head hurts. I drank too much last night. As I get out of bed, I feel a dull headache and recall last night's business dinner.
We went straight from the meeting to a nearby bar that opened early, and I got pretty drunk.
But it was worth it. Just wait, Emily.
You'll be pleased with the results. It seems I still feel a bit tipsy since I raise a clenched fist in the empty hotel room. Suddenly feeling embarrassed, I decide to take a shower.
Emily is the woman I have feelings for. She's 33, older than me, and a beautiful single woman.
She's a cool woman who swears to dedicate her life to her job.
I often work with her as a sales team.
I took a shower thoroughly.
Today, we are invited to a wedding.
The bride and groom are key contacts from a major client, and I heard a few of their colleagues were also invited. Since our company is small, I didn't expect us to be invited, so I was surprised when both Emily and I received invitations. Even Emily, who is usually reserved, was thrilled, jumping with joy.
We often hit it off with the couple at work. Both Emily and I have always dealt with them sincerely. The invitation to the wedding is a result of that. To make an even better impression, I need to dress neatly and head to the venue. From here to my home in New York, it's about an hour by train.
I'll head home first to finish getting ready and then go to the venue.
The wedding starts at 3 p.m. It's still 9 a.m.
I have a train booked that leaves at 10. It's only a 5-minute walk from the hotel to the station, so I can take it easy a bit.
I decide to contact Emily and look for my phone. My phone is always in my bag. Where's my bag?
Last night, I came back to the hotel drunk and fell asleep right away. If it were me, I'd have thrown the bag next to the bed. I look under the bed to check, but it's not there. I search the entire hotel room, but still can't find it.
My mind starts to panic. Could it be I left it at the bar?
Everything important is in that bag: my wallet, business cards, and phone. I rush to the front desk and ask them to call the bar I visited last night, but there's no answer.
Of course. The bar also opened at 3 p.m. yesterday.
The staff must all be fast asleep at this hour.
Luckily, the company covers the hotel expenses, so checking out wasn't a problem.
But now, I only have a travel bag with my clothes hastily stuffed in it.
I feel lost, but there's one piece of luck. I have my train ticket in the breast pocket of my suit.
I always put tickets in my pocket.
It's been a habit since I was a kid. After using the outbound ticket, I left the return ticket in my pocket.
Emily often tells me, it's risky, put it in your wallet, but this time, the habit saved me. Anyway, as long as I can get home, I can figure things out.
If I explain to my landlord, I can get into my apartment even without keys. Fortunately, my landlord lives on the first floor of the apartment building, and we talk often.
I'm worried about not having my phone, but I head to the station to catch the 10 o'clock train. As I walk briskly through the station, I notice people staring fixedly at one spot.
What's going on?
Looking in the direction of their gaze, I see a teenage girl in a school uniform crouched down.
It seems like she's crying. She's sobbing loudly. Despite her obvious distress, no one approaches her. What a heartless world. A high school girl is in trouble, and no one helps. I still have time before the train departs. I approach the girl. What's wrong?
When I speak, she flinches and looks at me nervously.
It's no wonder she's startled by a man in his 30s suddenly talking to her. But it seems like an emergency, and she needs someone's help.
As I wait for her to speak, her small lips move slightly.
I'm okay.
She says this while crying and then lowers her head again.
She's clearly not okay. I continue talking.
I might not be able to do much, but I can't just leave you like this.
What happened? Do you need to call someone? I realize as I try to take out my phone. Oh, that's right. I don't have my phone or wallet.
Thinking I can't help her with no phone, and seeing she doesn't seem ready to talk, I say, okay, I'll go now. But maybe the lady at the information desk can help.
The girl seemed anxious about me leaving.
She gently tugged at the hem of my suit as I tried to stand up.
My mom is in critical condition.
What? I try to make sense of the story through her sobbing.
Her name is Lily.
She's a 17-year-old high school student from New York. This morning, she received news that her mother had been in a car accident and was in critical condition. She rushed to the station with her teacher. She parted ways with the teacher at the station entrance and headed to the platform. She realized it at the ticket gate. The ticket that her teacher had given her and she had put in her purse was missing, along with the purse itself. She has no idea if she dropped it along the way or left it at her internship site. To make matters worse, her school prohibits bringing cell phones to internships, so she doesn't even have her phone.
She felt helpless and crouched down here. What should I do, my mom?
I can't just leave her like this.
As someone who also lost his wallet, I want to help her. But all I have are some worn-out clothes and one train ticket to New York.
If I give her this ticket, she can get back to New York.
But then I won't be able to return to New York. I also have to attend a crucial client's wedding today. As I ponder this dilemma, I recall my grandpa.
When I was a kid, my grandpa on my mom's side adored me. After my grandma passed away, he looked so lonely and eventually fell ill. In his hospital bed, he always seemed to say, "I'm all alone," looking despondent. Every time I visited, I'd say, "You've got me," and smile.
Because it made him happy. But in the end, I couldn't be with him when he passed away. He died alone.
I regretted it deeply.
When I got the news of his critical condition, I was playing at a friend's house.
By the time my parents called all my classmates' houses to find me, Grandpa had already passed. I look at Lily, who's still crying.
It's clear who needs this train ticket more.
I take out the train ticket from my breast pocket and offer it to Lily. Her face lights up for a moment, but she quickly looks away, feeling guilty. I force the ticket into her hand.
But I feel bad for taking it.
Holding her hand firmly, I look her straight in the eyes and say, "Don't hesitate.
You'll regret it." Lily's tearful eyes widen in surprise. Your mom is in critical condition, right? I hope she makes it.
But critical means the worst could happen any moment.
Run without hesitation. Before you regret it.
I push her gently, and she starts running towards the platform. Watching her disappear beyond the ticket gate, I hold my head in my hands.
What have I done? What was I thinking? Pretending to be some kind of hero. I have an important wedding to attend. But,
well, as long as Emily shows up, it should be fine.
I'm just an extra anyway. My strength is not dwelling on things and staying positive.
There's no use worrying, so I head to the police station.
Maybe my bag has been turned in.
But it wasn't at the police station.
I begged the police officer to let me use the phone. I called the office, but no one answered. Of course. It's Saturday. Unless there's an emergency, we don't work on weekends. Next, I desperately try to recall Emily's contact information. In this age where you can make a call with just one tap on your phone, there's no way I'd remember her number.
I rummaged through my travel bag for any contact information related to work, but found nothing. So, I decided to head to the bar I visited last night.
The bar opens at 3 p.m.
If the staff arrives a couple of hours early, I might be able to grab the train, endure an hour's ride, and still make it to the 3 p.m. wedding. I anxiously waited for the staff to arrive, but even after 1 p.m., no one showed up. Growing more restless, I continued to wait, and finally, at 1:30 p.m.,
a staff member leisurely arrived, startled by my sudden rush.
Fortunately, they had kept my bag behind the register. The staff member, who had served me last night, noticed my bag while cleaning up and tried to chase after me.
But they couldn't find me.
They apologized for the delay in noticing. I thanked the kind staff and dashed out of the bar.
Looking at my phone, I saw a ton of missed calls from Emily. I called Emily while running.
She answered before the first ring even finished. Before I could utter a word, Emily's angry voice pierced my ears.
What have you been doing all this time? Stunned by the sudden yelling, my mind went blank. The wedding starts at 3 p.m. It's still only 1:30 p.m. I shouldn't be getting scolded this badly. Maybe something happened?
I briefly explained the situation. When I mentioned that I left my bag at the bar, Emily sighed so heavily it was frightening even though I couldn't see her.
What? So you still haven't? No, I haven't gotten on the train yet. What on earth are you doing? She yelled again. It's understandable. This is my fault.
I was about to ask her to explain the situation, saying I'd be a little late, when I was startled. On the other end of the phone, it seemed like Emily was crying. This is an important wedding of our client's key contacts. Just being invited is a big deal, a chance to build stronger trust.
I might ruin this opportunity, but crying seems overboard.
Thinking my admiration for Emily might need to be forever sealed, I started to make excuses. Well, I did have the train ticket, but I gave it away for a good reason.
What?
I sensed Emily gasping on the other end of the call. Just then, I arrived at the station.
Anyway, I'll buy a new ticket and head over right away. Talk to you soon,
I said, cutting the call abruptly. And bought a ticket to New York at the counter. The train was departing in just 10 minutes.
Even so, the arrival time in New York was 3 p.m.
The wedding venue is a luxury hotel about 15 minutes from New York Station by taxi, but it's certain I won't make it to the 3 p.m. start. I plan to change into my wedding suit at home, but there's no time. As soon as I got off the train at New York Station, I rushed into a department store, explained my situation to the staff. Bought a black suit that fit me, and changed right there before heading to the venue. Grateful for my body that fits off the rack suits and my mom for having me the way I am, I made my way to the venue. Arriving out of breath, I found that the wedding ceremony was just transitioning to the reception.
It was 3:30 p.m.
I managed to avoid the embarrassment of opening the door in the middle of the reception.
After checking in, I searched for Emily.
Before I could find her, Emily spotted me and ran over in a stunning smoky pink dress.
She rushed towards me and hugged me tightly. Ha! My mind went blank, and my face turned red.
As I stammered in confusion, Emily said, "Thank you." Though I didn't understand, I looked at her tear-filled eyes.
You helped Lily, didn't you?
The name sounded familiar, but my brain was still not functioning fully.
The high school girl you gave your train ticket to, she's my niece.
Look, this girl, right?
Emily showed me her phone.
There, in what seemed to be a hospital room, was the girl I had given the ticket to just hours earlier, smiling faintly. The coincidence was overwhelming.
But I was shocked at the same time. Wait, so the critical condition you mentioned was? Emily continued. My sister, it was a tough situation.
Emily had rushed to the hospital after hearing her sister was critically injured. Emily's parents had already passed away, and Lily's father, Emily's brother-in-law, had also died in an accident. After contacting Lily's teacher, Emily had been waiting for Lily while trying to reach me. There was no way she could attend the wedding in this state. That's why she wanted me to take her place at the wedding. But I had left my phone and all my belongings at the bar, and her calls went unanswered.
Lily arrived at the hospital around 11:30 a.m. That's when they found out she had lost her purse and couldn't board the train. Emily was surprised and asked, "How did you get back?" Lily, with tearful eyes, said, "A stranger gave me his ticket. When you called, it was already time to leave for the wedding if we were to make it. I finally got in touch with you. And though I hoped you'd handle the wedding alone, you said you'd be late."
I yelled out of frustration and worry.
"I'm sorry." Emily apologized to me. I accepted her apology. Wait a minute. I realized something shocking.
So, your sister is still in critical condition, and Lily is alone with her?
When I said this, Emily nodded yes, holding back tears.
I pushed Emily's back and said, "Hurry.
Go back to the hospital."
Quickly, repeatedly like a broken record.
"It's fine, Lily is there, and I made it to the wedding. Besides, this event is important."
Without letting her finish, I shouted,
"Just go. You'll regret it if you don't." Ah, this is the second time I've said you'll regret it today.
Thinking of my grandpa again, I looked Emily straight in the eyes.
Leave this to me. Everything will be fine.
I'll secure this important deal on my own.
I expressed my baseless confidence earnestly.
Please stay with your sister.
Stay with Lily.
Please. I asked her deeply, and Emily softly said thank you before turning and leaving the venue.
Please, make it in time. I prayed as I watched Emily's back.
The reception proceeded smoothly. When I found the right moment to greet the bride and groom, they welcomed me with smiles. They had heard from the staff about Emily leaving early and were very concerned. They said, "Take care of her," making me feel humbled. I had caused this trouble, and had nothing to support. I assured them that I would visit them again for business, and they said they were looking forward to our big deal. Apparently, they had overheard some of the conversation in the lobby. Feeling a bit embarrassed and knowing others were waiting to greet the bride and groom, I quickly left their table.
After the reception ended, I immediately called Emily.
Her distressed voice made me straighten up.
Can I come to the hospital too?
Emily's voice was faint, and I strongly felt the urge to support her.
I expected to be told off for intruding on a family moment.
But to my surprise, she said, "I'm waiting for you."
I asked for the hospital's location and took a taxi there.
Arriving at the hospital out of breath, I saw doctors and nurses gathered around. It was clear she didn't have much time left.
Understanding the situation, I quietly approached Emily.
Tears were streaming endlessly from Emily's eyes, and Lily was holding the hand of the woman lying on the bed. Lily, like Emily, was also crying. As the heart rate monitor's beep slowed, Lily let out a small cry.
"Mom!" Everyone focused on Lily. "Mom, you're holding my hand, can you hear me?"
She desperately spoke to her mother. But her mother's eyes didn't open. Watching closely, I saw her lips move slightly, though I couldn't make out the words. It looked like she was saying thank you, and I instinctively whispered thank you.
At that moment, the heart monitor made a foreboding sound.
The room was filled with quiet sobs. Emily staggered, and I supported her.
The doctor's final announcement echoed hollowly in the room, and Emily and Lily broke down in tears.
After the doctors and nurses left, and Emily and Lily had cried their hearts out, the room fell silent.
Thank goodness. Emily gave me a sharp look at my unintended comment. Ignoring it, I murmured. Grandpa might have said something too. I wish I could have heard it.
Tears started to fall from my eyes as well.
Emily's stern expression softened into tears again. Did she say thank you?
She repeated my words from the final moment. I answered with conviction.
Yes. Emily's eyes welled up once more. I see. I see.
She repeated, as if reassuring herself.
Thank you so much. I didn't get your contact information or name. I regretted it on the train. I never imagined you were from the same company as my aunt.
Lily, having calmed down a bit, appreciated me deeply. Following her lead, Emily also appreciated me. Thanks to you, we were able to say a proper goodbye.
Thank you.
I took a step back. Well, if I hadn't left my bag at the bar, you both could have gotten back quickly. I stammered, and Emily glared at me, scolding, "That's true." Lily burst out laughing, and for a moment, the atmosphere in the room lightened.
If you need anything, just let me know. Emily gave me a glance. When should I rely on you?
Her tear-stained eyes were glistening and incredibly beautiful. As I hesitated, Emily rested her head on my shoulder.
A pleasant fragrance wafted from Emily's hair.
I might rely on you a bit more from now on. Flustered by her words, I loudly responded, "Yes.
I'll always support you." Emily gave me a small scolding, "You're too loud."
After that, there were the funeral and various arrangements.
With only Emily and Lily as close relatives, I helped with what I could. When things had settled down a bit, Emily invited me to her home.
She ordered some simple snacks for delivery and showed her appreciation. After seeing her sister off, Emily's expression was bright but still carried a hint of sadness. Emily slowly started to speak.
"I've decided to take Lily in."
It wasn't surprising.
I had expected Emily to do that. "Lily must be so relieved," I said. Emily gave a wry smile and said, "Ah."
Marriage is a distant dream now, in a resigned voice.
Without thinking, I blurted out, "How about me?"
Emily didn't seem shocked at all and laughed softly.
"That's impossible. Lily still has 5 more years until she graduates from college. Find someone nice and be happy, Ted. I can wait 5 years," I said, feeling frustrated and clinging to hope. Emily seemed to be brushing me off lightly. "Please. Go out with me. Date me with marriage in mind. I will wait as long as it takes. I've fallen in love with you,"
I desperately pleaded, and Emily straightened her back. She looked stunning. "I have the responsibility of raising Lily into a respectable person until she graduates from college.
Money isn't the issue. But I need to support Lily. I don't have time for a relationship," Emily declared firmly, looking straight at me. "Can't you share a bit of that responsibility with me?"
Emily furrowed her brow at my words.
A 31-year-old youngster? Taking responsibility for a high school girl? It's impossible. Emily looked at me with exasperation, and I replied. "And Emily, you're just a 33-year-old young woman."
Emily puffed out her cheeks at my remark.
Don't state a woman's age so bluntly.
Her puffed-up cheeks were so amusing that I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Then I stepped closer to Emily and took her hand. Her hand tensed up for a moment, but she didn't pull away. "I want to protect Lily, who was crying at the station. I want to support Lily, who was crying in the hospital.
And
I want to spend my life loving and healing you, who was also crying in that hospital room."
Emily didn't give a verbal response,
but she squeezed back my hand tightly. It was her way of showing her affirmation.
5 years later, Emily and I got married.
We had just finished the wedding ceremony and were now at the reception. It was a small, intimate venue. To ensure Emily didn't feel self-conscious about not having many relatives, we kept the guest list to mainly friends. We even invited the couple from the client who had invited us to their wedding 5 years ago.
They attended with their 2 small children, smiling.
Emily left her seat first for an outfit change. As I watched her leave, Lily came up to our table. She recently graduated college, and she's been busy as a first-year police officer. She had just returned from the police academy. Having lost both her parents in accidents, she studied hard and pursued a career as a police officer to help reduce traffic accidents.
Whenever I visited Emily's house with some treats, Lily was always studying in her room.
I watched her, now a beautiful young woman, with pride.
"You're adorable, Lily. Has anyone weird tried to talk to you?" Lily laughed at my comment. "Adorable? That's something you should say to the bride," I countered.
"I already told the bride she's beautiful, so it's okay." I had been telling Emily she was beautiful throughout the preparations.
"That's so like you, Uncle Ted." Lily affectionately called me Uncle Ted. "Sorry for making you wait for 5 years. My aunt is stubborn."
We had made a promise that we wouldn't marry until Lily was settled.
It was a decision we both made. Not just Emily.
I shook my head silently and smiled at Lily.
"In these 5 years, have I done anything for you?"
Lily leaned in slightly and whispered in my ear.
"Ever since you gave me that train ticket, Uncle Ted, you've been my hero." Hearing that unexpectedly made me blush. Lily teased me with a smile.
A staff member informed me that it was time for me to leave the room for a while.
As I stood to leave, Lily beamed at me. "My hero, Uncle Ted.
Please take good care of my precious aunt." With a thumbs up, I acknowledged her words.
For the next outfit, Emily would be wearing a deep blue, slender dress that suited her perfectly.
I knew I'd be showering her with compliments again. Suppressing my grin, I headed toward the door of the reception hall, hearing the MC's words behind me.
"Towards you, adorned in that beautiful blue dress." "Dad, I'm done with today's cleaning,"
I called out to my father at the register from the storefront.
"Good job. Be careful on your way. I'm off." With my backpack on, I waved to my dad.
This was my morning routine when I was little.
The dazzling morning sun and my father's smile. I can still remember it vividly. "My name is Kevin Smith. My father ran a stationery store.
My job was to clean the storefront every morning, and I think it started when I was in 3rd grade. This routine continued until I became a high school student. Now, I am 62 years old. I've aged quite a bit. Both my parents have passed away, and my kids are grown and independent. Now I live with my wife. I've always been a quiet type, but I've been told I've become even more gentle and reserved with age. Life with you is so peaceful. My wife once said while we were having coffee together. However, there was one man I could never get along with. Whenever I was with him, I felt uneasy. His name was John. We met in elementary school. John was always a prominent figure. He would brag about his father, who was an executive at a famous company. He wore expensive clothes and had a private tutor for his studies. He always boasted about how privileged he was. On the other hand, I was just an ordinary student who didn't stand out in class. I became aware of John in 5th grade during an open school day. Actually, it was from this time that John started to hold a grudge against me. The assignment was a typical one, to write about our future dreams. I didn't have any grand dreams. I just vaguely thought I would take over my father's store. So, I wrote about my daily routine in my essay. At home or the store, especially keep the entrance clean. If you always keep it ready to welcome good people and good luck, happiness will come to you. My father would say this almost like a mantra. That's how my morning cleaning routine started. Additionally, my father believed that stationery is a tool to accumulate knowledge and experience. As the son of a stationery store owner, he taught me diligently. In reality, it was just because the store was often empty and he had time. Thanks to this, I also did well in school. When I wrote about this fact in a way that adults would appreciate, my teacher praised me highly. It was the only time I ever received applause as someone who usually didn't stand out. However, John didn't like it. For someone who was always bragging about his father, it was unthinkable that my ordinary father would be praised. The next day, John's harassment began. For a stationery store owner's kid, you use shabby pencils. Your eraser is small and dirty. Your store must sell nothing but defective products. Hey, everyone, don't buy anything from Kevin's store. He constantly made fun of our store and sometimes even did things that seemed like sabotage. John's family was influential in the community. No one dared to defy him. I became even more invisible, spending my days quietly. This situation continued into middle school, but as the number of students increased and we were placed in different classes, John's bullying decreased and I managed to find some peace. Later, I aimed to attend the local public high school. When I heard John was going to a prestigious private high school, I was genuinely relieved. But life is full of ups and downs. Soon after I started high school, my father's stationery store ran into financial trouble. A large shopping center opened about 15 minutes away by car. Its variety and prices were unbeatable for a small, family-run store. Despite my father's efforts for 2 more years, he eventually had to close the store. He worked various jobs until retirement and somehow managed to put me through college. 10 years after graduating from middle school, I attended a reunion. I looked forward to seeing old friends, but the first person to speak to me was John. "Your store went under, huh? Too bad you couldn't take it over." He still held a grudge from nearly 15 years ago. I was annoyed and dismissed him casually. Yeah, it was unfortunate. Not everyone can have as grand a life as you. I meant it sarcastically, but John didn't catch on. I'm having a tough time too. I joined my dad's company, but people say I'm only there because of him. But I just landed a big contract and shut them up. He was still a talkative braggart. His father was now a senior executive at a chemical company. Eventually, I'll have to take over. It's a lot of pressure. I sighed quietly. Good luck with that. You too. But I guess all you can manage is cleaning the store. With that, John laughed loudly and walked away. Despite the reunion, I felt gloomy. I took a sip of beer and rejoined my friends. 40 years passed. I never saw John again. Yet, my memories of him remained vivid. He left a strong impression. That's probably why. We were well past our 60th year, yet after decades apart, we immediately recognized each other. One afternoon, I was meticulously cleaning the floor of a building entrance. It had been raining since morning, and the floor was covered in water droplets.
By the afternoon, the rain intensified, accompanied by thunder. Suddenly, two men rushed into the entrance. "Couldn't you at least get a taxi?" An elderly man shouted at a man in his 40s. He then shook his soaking wet umbrella, spraying water everywhere. "Hey, you! Clean this up," the older man ordered me. As soon as our eyes met, we both stopped in our tracks. "You? Kevin?" "John." The man I could never forget stood in front of me. He approached me with a smirk. He looked me up and down in my work uniform. "So, you became a janitor?" "Makes sense, cleaning is about all you're good for." He repeatedly tapped the tip of his umbrella on the floor, spreading more water around. "But still, a janitor at this age. Do you have any savings? What will you do when you're old?" He looked gleeful, like he'd found a new toy. "No rest for the poor. You have to keep working as long as you can move, right?" John chuckled nastily. Just then, the man behind him noticed my face and gasped. "John! That man is..." The man looked pale. But John didn't notice. "Huh? This guy? He's my classmate from way back. He used to use shabby pencils despite his family owning a stationery store. His store went under because they had no customers." "No, that's not it." The man's face was covered in cold sweat. I smiled politely at the man. "Let's meet again." Then I wiped the floor John had wet and walked away. "Well, good luck to you. I have an important business meeting now, unlike you." As I glanced back, I saw John laughing, while his subordinate had a serious expression on his face. 10 minutes later, I changed into a suit and entered the large conference room on the upper floor of the building. Guided by my secretary, Hannah, I took my seat, surrounded by employees who greeted me. "I've always said I don't like formalities. Relax." They smiled and their expressions softened. "Let's get started." At my signal, an employee at the door moved. He soon brought in our business meeting counterparts. "Thank you for your time today. My name is Michael, and this is our manager, John." It was the man who turned pale upon seeing my face at the entrance earlier. Michael glanced around at the employees, and when he spotted me, he straightened his back again. "I deeply apologize for earlier." John finally realized my presence. "Huh? Wait, Kevin? John. This is Executive Vice President Smith." Michael whispered urgently to John. "What? EVP? Kevin?" "Yes, Executive Vice President Smith." Michael's voice rose. I spoke deliberately and slowly. "Nice to see you again." "No way. You're really Kevin?" John's reaction caused a stir among my employees. "Yes, he's my elementary school classmate," I told them, calming the room. With that, John finally understood exactly who I was. You're a janitor?" That was more of a good luck ritual. I always do it before a new deal, hoping for a good connection. "I hope today's meeting doesn't turn out to be a bad one." John's face turned pale. "Well, what now?" I pondered silently. Unable to take over my father's store, I joined a major stationery manufacturer after college. It's a company everyone would recognize by name. My childhood knowledge of stationery must have helped me get in. Initially, I was assigned to the planning department, working on various collaborations aimed at children. However, children's products lost their appeal quickly and didn't do well. Eventually, I shifted my focus to high-end and high-quality stationery for adults, aiming to create products that would be status symbols like old-fashioned fountain pens. The stationery is luxurious yet user-friendly. I had confidence in that plan. But I was also anxious, so the day before my presentation, I cleaned my desk in the shared areas of the planning department before heading home. The presentation was well received, and the product became a smash hit after its release. Stationery is a tool to accumulate knowledge and experience. If you always keep it ready to welcome good people and good luck, happiness will come to you. My father's words echoed in my mind. This success led to my promotion.
Continuing the habit of cleaning the office before presentations or important events earned me a reputation for meticulousness. And I was eventually noticed by the quality control department head. Ensuring the quality of products and their production environment suited me well. By the time I turned 60, I had risen to executive vice president in charge of quality control. Since then, whenever an important meeting or negotiation was coming up, I would discreetly change into work clothes and clean the entrance. At first, people found it odd that an EVP would do such a thing, but now it's a tradition no one questions. Today's meeting was about a new gel ink for pens developed by a major chemical company, which I was looking forward to. But I was surprised when I saw the company's name. John's Company. And John himself was coming to the meeting. You tricked me? I never said my job was as a janitor. Anyone would be fooled seeing you dressed like that. This company employs a fraud as an EVP? John. That's enough. John was reprimanded by his subordinate, and even he fell silent. I sighed dramatically. Being disrespectful, changing your attitude based on someone's status, and engaging in lowly behavior behind the scenes. Having someone like that as a manager makes me worry about what your company might do when we're not looking. I stood up. Please wait. Our products are highly rated for their quality. At least hear us out. I looked directly at John, my voice firm. Then please review your internal management and come back. I am very interested in your products. With that, I left the conference room. As Hannah followed me, she peered at my face. What happened today? You seem harsher than usual. Even Hannah had noticed my displeasure. Wounds from childhood are surprisingly deep. I looked up at the ceiling as we walked down the hallway. I don't know what discussions took place at John's company afterward. I only heard that John was demoted and stripped of his title. Sometime later, while I was working in my office as usual, the intercom rang. Yes? There's someone here without an appointment requesting to see you. Who is it? He says his name is John, the receptionist informed me. I thought for a few seconds and then replied, tell him to wait at the entrance. I changed into my work clothes and headed downstairs as usual. John was sitting hunched over on a lobby chair. He rushed toward me as soon as he saw me. Kevin. Please. You have to make the deal with us. If you don't, I'll get fired. Irritated by his lack of an apology, I motioned for him to follow me. Come with me. I led him to the janitor's room and handed him a new uniform and a mop. First, clean the floor you dirted. But it's already clean. That's not the point. It's about the principle. Reluctantly, he changed clothes and headed back to the entrance. Just try cleaning the floor from one end to the other without thinking about anything else. Though he looked annoyed, he started mopping silently. I joined him in cleaning. After a while, John began to talk about the past. Your dad was a good man. Mine was strict. John was expected to excel in everything, grades, sports and writing. When you got praised for that essay, not just you but your dad too, my dad hated it. Before, he was compared to many classmates, but then it became don't lose to Kevin. John's stress turned into harassment towards me. When we went to different high schools, I was relieved. I was surprised to learn that John felt the same way I did. He went to college aiming to be a researcher. But his arrogant personality led to him being disliked by professors and failing to get into graduate school. The job search he started abruptly was haphazard, and he struggled to get hired. Eventually, with his parents' help, he got a job at his current company. However, it seems he was viewed with disdain for getting in through connections. Even after my father was gone, I sometimes heard his voice. I was always being pushed by something. He had been obsessed with climbing the corporate ladder to surpass his father. But he never got past being a manager. He knew he was not well liked in the company. When I saw you in the center of the conference room, something snapped inside me. I lost all motivation. But I also stopped hearing my father's voice. John seemed somewhat relieved. By the time we finished talking, we had cleaned the floor twice over. Looking at the now gleaming floor, John smiled with satisfaction. Working out isn't so bad once in a while. We have a janitor position open if you're interested. You're joking, right? After more than 50 years.
I saw John's genuine smile for the first time.
John changed back into his suit and said, "I'm leaving for today," before walking away.
Back in my office, I spoke to Hannah. Call the company about the Gel Ink deal. Tell them Kevin will reconsider. Understood. Hannah smiled softly. Looks like you're back to your usual self, Mr. Smith.
From then on, John started coming to clean our entrance about once a month. You should be doing this at your own company.
I can't.
The employees who resent me would just make the floor dirtier out of spite. John said with a surprisingly fresh look on his face.
We are still 62. We've got a lot ahead of us.
He added, a line I never expected to hear from him.
I couldn't help but burst out laughing.
We laughed together, gripping our mops tighter. My boss Emily suddenly called me when I was cleaning up my desk. I had been considering quitting without saying a word, but I reluctantly headed to her office since I was summoned. Then, she said something that I couldn't believe.
Hey, can you take over the $15 million deal? More than anything, I didn't want to work what she wanted me to do.
It was odd to assign such a huge project to an employee who was suddenly fired. Even though her father David was the executive vice president, I couldn't take any more of her whims.
I had an idea and said to Emily, "Can I see the documents?"
Thinking I had agreed, Emily handed me the documents with a smug smile.
As I glanced through them, my suspicion was confirmed.
My name was already listed as the person in charge. However, the date was from several months ago, before I was informed of my termination.
Why did she bring this up at this time? I understood her intentions and said firmly, "It's impossible because they appointed me. I'm fired, so excuse me. My name is Mark.
I was a company employee in my mid-50s. I'd been with this company since I graduated, spending more than half my life here. It felt both long and short, a strange sensation. I worked in the sales department of a beverage company, living fulfilling days as a salesman. However, when the company expanded, the sales department was split into the sales and marketing departments. I was assigned to the marketing department, where I am now. The marketing department was responsible for creating mechanisms to sell products. The marketing department focused on promoting to the market, unlike the sales department, which directly involved buying and selling.
While sales department dealt with immediate customers,
the marketing department aimed to understand potential customers' behavior and devise strategies.
Although I was initially confused by the difference, successfully selling the plans we researched and discussed was very rewarding. However, despite thorough market research and promotion, some products didn't sell at all, while others hit unexpected demographics.
I became fascinated with the depth of marketing. I was quite senior as one of the veterans from the department's inception, but I made efforts to communicate with the younger staff.
And they started to talk to me more openly.
I enjoyed this space where we could exchange opinions freely. Young people's opinions were crucial, and their information from social media was very fast. Trends that seemed to rise rapidly could suddenly disappear. Keeping up with this speed at my age was challenging, but it was part of the job. Once adversaries were on your side, they became helpful informants.
Mark. A young male employee called out to me. What is it? Our rival company had a major backlash yesterday. What? Why?
I tried to keep up with online news, but I often missed smaller stories.
It seems they messed up with their tagline.
He showed me the controversial post.
This one, seriously?
Oh. I saw this yesterday.
This is bad. It's outdated and won't fly these days. A female employee passing by joined the conversation. So it's really bad? Definitely bad.
They both nodded in agreement.
Close call. We were considering a similar angle. I guess we should change it.
Changing the tagline for the project I was working on was a hassle, but it was better than facing a backlash.
That's a good idea. It'll backfire. These days, this kind of thing gets a lot of backlash. It's better to avoid it.
Thanks to everyone who was regardless of their seniority and clearly voicing their opinions, we've managed to avoid major mistakes. And the marketing department has a great atmosphere. However, this positive work environment was about to change due to a personnel transfer.
We have personnel transfers every year, and there was a major reshuffle this time as well. Replacing our calm and always smiling manager Mike was a new female boss in her 30s. Emily was somewhat of a celebrity. Rumor had it that she joined the company through her connections of David, the executive VP, and also her father, and was doing whatever she pleased in various departments. In reality, she favored and gave preferential treatment to those who praised her, but those who disagreed or argued with her were forcibly removed. I had been dreading what would happen to this department, which was full of people who spoke their minds, and my worst fears were confirmed. I went to Emily's desk to get approval for a project. This project had been meticulously discussed with the sales team and employees, and we finally put it together. Everyone felt confident about it, and we were ready to move forward with production once we got approval. Emily glanced through the proposal and then said with a dismissive tone, "What's this project?" "It's terrible," and tossed the papers aside. "What exactly is wrong with it?" When I nervously pressed for details, Emily, perhaps seeing it as defiance, glared at me sharply. "What's wrong is wrong. Redo it." "But, could you tell me what specifically needs to be redone?" As I was confused and asked, Emily responded with cold words. "I said everything. This project is rejected." "Wait. Please, at least let us discuss the content a bit more." Ignoring my plea, Emily stood up and left. I told everyone about Emily's rejection, and we decided to hold a new planning meeting. Confident in the previous project, everyone gathered in the conference room with gloomy expressions. Amidst this, an overly cheerful voice echoed in the room. "Why the long faces, everyone? I've got a great idea." Her proposal was outrageous, questionable if any market research was done at all. Even a new graduate could come up with something better, and we listened in stunned silence as Emily presented. After a while, a young male employee timidly raised his hand. "Excuse me, but how did you set up the persona for this project?" "Huh? Persona? Don't interrupt while I'm talking," Emily snapped and then continued. "A persona, in marketing terms, is a detailed profile of a target customer to give a concrete image of who they are. It's a basic marketing term, but it seemed Emily didn't know it. As we listened to her sloppy presentation, everyone exchanged furtive glances. We were all bewildered. When her presentation ended, she asked if there were any questions. I thought for a moment and then raised my hand and clearly stated, "Excuse me, Emily, but we can't proceed with this project." Emily's expression changed. "What do you mean? Honestly, this project doesn't hold up as a proposal. In marketing, market research is crucial, and..." Before I could finish, Emily sighed dramatically. "You don't get it." "What don't I get?" "Your position." Emily looked down at me with cold eyes. "What do you mean by that?" Before I could finish, Emily said, "You're fired. Don't come from next month." Normally, managers couldn't fire an employee on their own. But it seemed that Emily had some influence with her connections which I couldn't resist. I was suddenly fired from the company I had worked at for over 30 years. Despite being overwhelmed with confusion and sadness, there was no reversing the decision. After a period of feeling down, I decided I couldn't continue like this. So I started looking for a new job while using up my remaining vacation days. Even though I only had connections at my current workplace, it seemed I wouldn't be left without a job at this age thanks to the help of acquaintances. However, I was concerned about the colleagues I was leaving behind. Unfortunately, that was my last day. I hoped to talk with everyone during my last day at work. However, things didn't go as planned. As I was cleaning up my desk, Emily suddenly called me. I thought about quitting without saying a word, but I reluctantly headed to her office since I was summoned. Then, she said something unbelievable. "Hey, take over the $15 million deal." I asked her what she meant by taking over a deal on my last day, to which she replied, "I've decided to cancel your termination." "So? Can you start working on this deal right away?" While it might be good that my termination was cancelled, I had already secured a new job. Considering the arrangements with my new employer, I couldn't simply undo everything. More importantly, I didn't want to follow Emily's whims anymore. It was strange to assign such a huge project to an employee who was suddenly fired. Even though her father David was an executive VP,
I couldn't tolerate any more of her arbitrary actions.
I came up with an idea and said, "Can I see the documents?"
Mistaking my intentions, Emily handed me the documents with a smug smile.
As I flipped through them, my suspicion was confirmed.
My name was already listed as the person in charge. However, the date was from several months ago, before I was informed of my termination.
Why did she bring up this project at this time? Understanding her intentions, I firmly told Emily. Since they appointed me, it's impossible.
I'm fired, so excuse me.
What?
You're refusing a $15 million deal?
Emily exclaimed. Yes. To be precise, I can't take this under your management. I'll handle it at my new job. What?
Emily stood up with a loud bang at my words. It was the first time I had seen her so flustered.
What do you mean by that?
Emily pounded the desk and leaned forward. I sighed and began to explain slowly. When I was first informed of my termination, I consulted with a former colleague who had worked in sales with me. He had planned to work with me in the marketing department but chose to leave the company to pursue sales elsewhere. He was working as a sales manager at another beverage company at the time. We still went out for drinks, and I wanted his advice as someone who had experienced job transitions. After quietly listening to my story, he finished his beer and said,
"Want to join us? Really? Is that okay?"
I was surprised by the sudden offer, but he said he was close with their HR manager and would discuss it.
Thankfully, things progressed smoothly from there.
I never imagined I could transition to a new job so easily.
I secured a position at another beverage company in the same industry. Moreover, I was assigned to the marketing department.
It truly felt like a stroke of luck. During the interview, Jack, the HR manager, asked if I knew about a major project. It had recently started. It was a widely discussed project about forming a business partnership with a rival company.
Naturally, it involved a substantial amount of money.
The partnership between rival companies had attracted considerable attention in the industry, so I had heard about it.
But I didn't know the details.
When I mentioned this, Jack tilted his head in confusion.
The documents Jack had included my name.
I was surprised and said there must be some mistake, but now I understood. This project had indeed come to our company. Emily had secretly tried to hijack a project originally assigned to me, and when it became too much for her, she tried to pass it off.
It was bad enough she tried to steal it, but if she attempted it, she should have seen it through.
I felt anger towards Emily's approach to her work. She must have bullied her way up to manager by intimidating others and taking credit for their work.
Realizing the pettiness of Emily's methods, I sighed deeply once more.
Emily had been listening and started trembling with anger and shouting.
"Of course you can't refuse.
You have to take this project."
"Even if you say that."
Panicked that I wouldn't take the project, Emily turned to the other employees and said,
"Hey, are you going to run away?
If you leave, these guys will have to take over.
Abandoning your colleagues makes you the worst."
Well, having my colleagues, who had helped me so much, used as hostages left me speechless.
But then, everyone turned their attention to a figure entering the office.
There was a man in a well-tailored suit, exuding authority and presence.
"That's enough, Emily." It was David. "Dad." Emily's eyes widened, and she took a step back.
She must have never expected her father, the executive VP, to appear.
"David." I couldn't hide my surprise either. Seeing David in the office was rare.
It might have even been the first time he visited the marketing department. I had informed him today was my last day, but I never expected him to come.
"I'm sorry, Mark.
It seems my daughter has caused trouble." David looked at me with an apologetic expression.
"No. I never expected you to come. I love my daughter, you see."
I've turned a blind eye until now, but this time I couldn't ignore it. "I don't know how to apologize enough to you."
David looked down. "Please, raise your head."
"Yes, Dad, why are you apologizing to someone like him?"
Emily's face was filled with fear and anxiety. "Emily, you mustn't say someone like him.
Mark and I have been colleagues in the sales department for a long time."
David firmly rebuked Emily.
David was my senior in the sales department, and we had a long history together. We rarely met since he became the executive VP, but he still invited me for drinks a few times a year. He had contacted me while I was on vacation, and I had told him about what had happened.
But Dad, I'm his boss.
If you think being a boss means you can do anything, you're gravely mistaken. David raised his voice, and Emily shrank back in fear.
Emily, you've gone too far. You're an adult now.
Even though you're my daughter, you'll have to face the consequences yourself.
No. Dad, wait. I didn't do anything. Emily clung to her father with a pale face. I've been listening to your conversation with Mark from outside the room. It's unacceptable to decide someone's fate based on your whims. You're not suited for a leadership position. That's not true. I did well in my previous department too.
Emily tried to defend herself with tears in her eyes. I hate to say this, but all you've been doing is taking credit for others' work to climb up the ladder.
That's not real work. Stop this childish behavior. That's cruel. It's not childish. I was doing my job properly.
Ignoring Emily's tearful pleas, David turned his back on his daughter.
I will report this matter to Mr. Smith. It's my fault for letting it go this far.
Mark, I'm truly sorry for what happened.
I hope you excel at your new job. Thank you. I'd love to go out for drinks again sometime.
David smiled and left the marketing department, leaving a crying Emily behind. Not long after I resigned, Emily's fate was decided as well.
She was demoted and transferred to a remote sales office.
It was a clear case of being sidelined.
David voluntarily offered to cut his executive compensation.
The marketing team continued to work diligently, expressing their opinions freely in project meetings. They seemed to be satisfied with their new boss, and the tone of their occasional emails to me was cheerful. I hoped they would keep their sincerity and continue to have fulfilling days ahead.
Mark. A young male employee called out to me as I was looking at my PC. What's up? Check this out. This post is going viral. What? Which one? This one, right here.
He showed me his phone screen.
Wow. It's getting a lot of comments. Yes.
We've nailed the buzz factor.
Reading through the comments, I couldn't help but pump my fist. This photo is great too. I'm really happy.
The young employee chuckled at my reaction.
What? What's funny?
Well, you always talk to us so casually that I forget there's a big age gap between us.
I felt a bit of a generation gap just now. What? When? What was it?
As I panicked, he coldly responded.
It's a secret. Why? Tell me. Nope. Smiling mischievously, he returned to his desk. Come on, seriously.
I didn't understand what caused the generation gap, so I tilted my head and returned my gaze to the computer. A few months had passed since I started my new job. Even though it was the same industry and the same marketing department, the internal systems and methods were, of course, different. Learning new things at this age was challenging, but both young and veteran employees had started talking to me casually lately. Many people had strong opinions, and being able to work while challenging each other was immensely gratifying. The $15 million project was still ongoing. Ultimately, the project at my old company was taken over by a trusted colleague, which was a relief. Meeting up with him during meetings was always something to look forward to. My career change reaffirmed that there is still much to learn in marketing.
Despite my age, I'm still a newcomer here, and I want to absorb as much as I can. Mark. The meeting is starting.
At my colleague's call, I stood up energetically.
Coming. I headed to the meeting room with a spring in my step. I wondered what kind of ideas would come up today. I opened the door to the meeting room with anticipation.
It was a creative cuisine restaurant that had been open for 3 years. With counter seats and 3 tables, it was a small place that would be full with just 20 people. Despite being called creative cuisine, the dishes were more like homemade meals with a special touch from the owner. Most of the customers were regulars, and while the place was never packed, it was never empty either. I took my usual spot at the far end of the counter almost every night. That night, a group of several people occupied two of the three tables, having a drinking party. They were regulars here, colleagues from the same company and department. The one who always brought them here was Emily, their female manager. Normally tense and irritable, she looked completely relaxed, her expression softened as she happily sat around the table with her subordinates. She had truly become a remarkable manager. From my counter seat, I watched her and her group, lost in thought. 5 years ago, I was one of their colleagues too. I joined the company fresh out of college and had been there for over 15 years, an old but low-ranking employee. It wasn't out of spite, but I had zero interest in climbing the corporate ladder and was unmotivated about my work. As long as I did my job adequately, left on time, and earned enough to live comfortably, I was content. The company's main business was to develop and provide information systems based on client requests. Those who were motivated honed their skills and advanced their careers. As for me, I had no such ambition and therefore had limited job responsibilities. However, that didn't mean I was unserious. I was never late. Even with tasks as simple as a newbie's, I did what I was given. Sometimes younger employees would ask, "Can you do this, Michael?" And if I couldn't, I'd answer firmly that I can't, and they'd apologize. Internally, they might have thought of me as useless or incompetent. But it never affected workplace relationships. I was a self-admitted salary thief, and no one complained about it. Then Emily was transferred here as a manager. In her early 30s, she looked young, almost inexperienced. Rumor had it she was an elite who had been rapidly promoted. But in reality, it was the company's meaningless policy to promote women to enhance its image. She was promoted as part of the company's superficial policy to actively promote women, making her a victim in a way. To me, who saw work merely as a means of living, it was incomprehensible. But there are people who see career advancement as the purpose of their life. She was the perfect example of that. The company and her ambitions aligned perfectly, resulting in her promotion. However, when she first took the position, it seemed to me she was overburdened and stressed, having been promoted beyond her capacity just because she was a woman. At first, she tried to maintain distance from her subordinates and acted in an authoritative way. For example, she had a strange fixation on the gender of her subordinates. If a male subordinate served her tea, she'd thank him, but if a female did, she'd lecture her about how serving tea wasn't a woman's job. In our department, there was no such thing as tea servers. Regardless of gender, if you wanted tea, you made it yourself. And if you were making some, you might make some for others too. That was it. She was always tense and irritable. With her childlike face, she looked like a little girl pouting when she was upset. So, in our department, we handled her with kid gloves. To her, a salary thief like me must have seemed especially strange. One time, she came in with reference materials, asking a female subordinate to copy the pages she'd marked with sticky notes. I happened to have nothing to do but count down the minutes until the end of the workday. So, I volunteered to make the copies. Michael? You're going to make the copies? Why? There's no special reason. A man doing copying works? I was astonished by her words. At the same time, I felt sympathy for her. She must have spent her entire career until being promoted to manager doing chores like making tea and copying, thinking they were women's work, while competing with men behind the scenes. At that moment, I thought from the bottom of my heart, while promoting women sounds good, simply promoting women for the sake of it is a superficial company policy. Should being a man or a woman be a reason for promoting someone? Even though American society is still often called a male-dominated society, is it right to blindly promote someone just because they are a woman, regardless of their ability? These thoughts crossed my mind, but I was just a salary thief. I chuckled to myself and spent the rest of the time copying until the end of the workday. About half a month after she became a manager, I happened to share a table with David, the department head, at the restaurant where I went for lunch. David was 3 years my senior and was my mentor when I was a newbie. Back then, he used to look down on me, saying, "You can do it if you try, but you just don't try." But when I openly admitted that I didn't want to, David understood and started to look out for me. So, how's Emily doing? Maybe women just aren't cut out for it? Hey now, that's not like you, David. You shouldn't say women aren't cut out for it. I pointed out, and David gave a wry smile. He also seemed to be perplexed by the company's promoting women policy and was struggling with how to handle her.
She is motivated, unlike me. Compared to you, anyone would seem motivated.
In other words, motivation alone isn't enough, but you can't do without it either. Even with motivation, if the skills aren't there, it just leads to spinning your wheels. In the end, it results in nothing but futile efforts. Promoting women is easy to say, but it's tough in practice. It's hard on everyone involved. Even if it's tough, it has to be done. When I said that, David chuckled. He said he never expected to hear such words from me. I'll take direct responsibility for this project. It was a request from a long-standing client. They wanted to fix and improve some issues in their current information system. She probably wanted to make a significant achievement here. However, this led to overreaching. When the client's requirements document arrived, she responded quickly. Normally, we would visit the client, conduct interviews, and then devise a plan. But she had already prepared a solution independently before the first interview. And it was just one option with no alternatives. Several of the client's representatives were scheduled to attend the interview. Since she didn't want to face them alone, and I was the only one available, I accompanied her. She conducted herself confidently, asking questions and listened to the client's requirements. I started to think my presence was unnecessary until, "Here is the improvement plan we've prepared for today," she said confidently, spreading the documents on the table. The client's representatives looked at each other in stunned silence. I glanced at the documents and was shocked. What she had prepared wasn't an improvement of the current system but a complete transition to a new system. She passionately explained the benefits of the new system. However, the clients were just dumbfounded, their eyes wide open. Her passionate speech likely went in one ear and out the other. "Wait a minute, Emily," I interjected. I couldn't stand it any longer and stepped in to stop her. She glared at me like a sulking little girl. I shifted my gaze from her to the client's representatives across the table. "I apologize for Emily's behavior," I said to them. Then I quickly thought about how to proceed. The other day, at my favorite bar, the chef was complaining. He scolded a young apprentice, telling him the knife isn't sharp enough. "Take care of it," and the apprentice went and bought a new knife. As I laughed while saying this, the client representatives also laughed out loud. The only one not laughing was her. It seemed like the client's mood had improved. We managed to convince them by agreeing that we take the matter back and present a revised proposal later. After exchanging farewells and leaving the client's office, she still looked like a sulking girl. It was almost 6 p.m., the end of the workday. I called the office to let them know I would head home straight. "What was that story about the bar and the knife?" she asked. "It's just an analogy," I replied. She didn't seem to understand at all. So I told her. "I'm heading there now. Want to come with me?" "Where to?" she asked, puzzled. "To the bar I mentioned." "Let's check it out," I said. She tilted her head in confusion but followed me silently. I took her to the bar. We sat together at the counter facing the kitchen. "It's rare to see you with a woman," said Lisa, the familiar female chef. "See, this is the chef I was talking about," I said. "The chef is a woman?" I introduced her to Lisa as my boss and asked her to tell the knife story. "What was that story again?" Lisa asked, pretending to forget. "Come on, don't tell me you've already forgotten," I said, and started explaining it to her. It was just a few days ago. While I was drinking there, Lisa had complained to me with a frustrated look. She had scolded an apprentice for not sharpening a dull knife properly, but the apprentice had gone out and bought a new knife instead. "Yes, you mentioned that earlier," she said, still not getting it. "Sharpening a dull knife means to properly sharpen it, not to buy a new one," Lisa explained. "Oh, I see." She finally understood, I told her. "Basically, today, Emily, you did the same thing. The client wanted the knife sharpened, but you tried to sell them a new knife. Isn't that right?" "I just proposed what I thought was best, as one option," she replied. "But there were no options, were there? You just tried to push the new system on them." "It was practically a hard sell," I said bluntly. The sulking girl fell silent and lowered her head.
Hey, talking to your boss like that, is that okay? Lisa scolded me. You're right. I'm sorry, Emily, I said. It's fine.
Maybe I was 10 years too early to be a manager. Gone was the sulking girl, now she looked like a lost, confused, and endearing young woman.
Being suddenly promoted to manager must be tough for you too, Emily, I said.
Suddenly, I felt sorry for her and spoke as if it wasn't her problem. She gave a small nod and began to share what she had probably kept bottled up inside for a long time. Since childhood, she had been constantly told by her parents and those around her that she was just a girl, and she had grown tired of hearing it. She was determined not to be bound by such an outdated way of thinking. After getting a job, she worked hard in her own way. But reality was harsher than she had imagined. Every day, she told herself that despite her abilities, she wasn't being recognized because she was a woman. Then the company suddenly introduced its policy of promoting women. Without hesitation, she raised her hand.
However, once promoted to manager, she was rejected by male employees and resented by female employees.
She sighed deeply and buried her face in her hands. Whether male or female, I had no interest in career advancement, so I couldn't fully grasp her struggle.
Still, ignoring the client's needs like today isn't acceptable, I said.
Yes.
I regret that,
she replied, dejected. I felt uncomfortable playing the role of a lecturer, something that didn't suit me.
Then Lisa brought out an unusual dish.
What the heck is this?
I didn't order this.
Of course not.
You didn't order it.
Just try it.
It's a new menu prototype, Lisa said.
For the next 3 days, she immersed herself in creating a revised proposal, barely taking a lunch break. She also began to seek advice and ask questions from her subordinates, whom she had previously kept at a distance using her managerial authority. It was no exaggeration to say she had transformed. She even made tea for herself and others. As a result, I was also roped into her work and ended up working overtime.
Oh, you're working late again today? That's 3 days in a row.
Have you found your work ethic?
David told me so as he was leaving. What's so funny?
I just want to get out of here and grab a drink, I replied.
Talking to me like that, is that appropriate? He chided.
The proposal she created was well received, and she successfully secured the contract. What impressed the client the most was her suggestion of optional features they hadn't even requested.
Since then, despite being the manager, she often sought my advice. If I could help, I did so to the best of my ability. Then, one day,
I was waiting for the end of the workday, thinking about having a drink at my usual bar. She stood in front of me, blocking my way. She said she had something to discuss.
Right now? But it's time to go. Can't it wait until tomorrow?
It's not directly work-related, so I'd prefer to discuss it after hours. Though it was a bother, I couldn't refuse her determined expression and agreed. She led me to an empty conference room. The setting sun cast a reddish glow through the windows. Closing the door, she spoke to me sincerely. She said she had improved communication with her subordinates. She was slowly gaining confidence as a manager. And then I started to feel bothered and frustrated by how you're underestimated by everyone, she said.
Underestimated? I asked.
I had never cared about how I was evaluated, whether highly or poorly. I hate to say it, but people call you a salary thief.
Hearing that, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Are you okay with people talking behind your back like that? Well, it's not really talking behind my back. In fact, I think I was the one who started saying it myself.
As I shrugged it off, she got all fired up on her own and shook my shoulders, saying,
Michael, you're capable of doing your job. Be more positive about it. Hearing her words, I burst out laughing again. Emily, it's not about being positive. For me, work is way behind me, while for you, it's straight ahead. We're looking in completely opposite directions.
When I said that, she looked at me seriously and said,
We can't look in the same direction together?
Her passionate gaze made my heart skip a beat for a moment. But in many ways, it was impossible. So I honestly told her, no, that's not possible, and started to leave the conference room. Then she grabbed my arm and stopped me.
Really?
With you, I could.
I cut her off and said.
When that system improvement project came up, I happened to lend a hand. That's why she mistakenly thought I was capable of doing this job. It's not that others are underestimating me, Emily.
It's that you're overestimating me.
I gently removed her hand from my arm and left the conference room.
5 years have passed since then.
Hey, stop daydreaming and take this dish to that table, the owner said from behind the counter, handing me a large platter. The owner is Lisa, the female chef from the bar I used to frequent. She went independent and opened her own restaurant 3 years ago.
I quit my job at the same time. We got together as a couple.
Now, in name only, I'm a co-owner of this place. Lisa handles the cooking, while I help with payments, serving, and dishwashing.
Just sitting at the end of the counter with a drink would make me a freeloader.
I took the large platter to a table. As I approached, Emily, who was happily sitting with her subordinates, looked even more authoritative and composed. She was the first to notice me and got up from her chair to take the platter from my hands. As she did, I silently wondered, is it okay for you, Emily, to do something like this yourself? She looked at me and, as if to say it's fine, returned a calm and gentle smile.